All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you once again for joining me. My name is Nick Fuentes. I am a Master of Music student here at Cal State Fullerton School of Music in classical guitar performance. And I have been doing a lecture series here for OLLI on the early music of Los Angeles. Today is class number 3. We will be focusing on Charles Lummis. I do want to just go through a quick review of what we talked about last class. Class number 2, we talked about the early Spanish theater music in Los Angeles. We'll just do a quick review here. So we had talked about the Las Pastorales theatrical performances. These were theatrical performances about the shepherd's journey to the birthplace of Jesus. It is a story of good overcoming evil. These performances were put on in like town squares or in households, and they are still being performed today. This was just a quick little picture of an actual theater group here from nearby in La Habra. This picture is from 1934. They're all dressed in their costumes for the theater performance. And we had also touched a little bit on one of the main theaters in Los Angeles for Spanish theater. It was called Teatro Hidalgo, Mexican theater in Los Angeles. They put on live musical and theatrical dramas, and they were located on Main Street in Arcadia. They opened in 1912 and closed in 1936. We had talked about Rolando Torrado. He was a playwright, librettist, an actor for stage and film, and he was an impresario, and he was a key figure in producing many of the shows at the Spanish theater in Los Angeles. And he produced many Mexican revistas, which are musical reviews, and zarzuelas, which are short Spanish opera. And we had talked about a few of the performers. We had mentioned Maria Conesa, known for her voluptuous and picaresque images and Mexicanidad, which is Mexicanness. Spanish born, but Mexican at heart. She was a singer, songwriter, actress, and a dancer. And then last, we had followed up with Guti Cardenas. He was a famous Mexican singer and actor. He made records for Columbia Records. And he was killed tragically in 1932 while he performed in Mexico City. And one of the key things that I introduced last class was we talked about a simple listening guide. Just a guide, a template to kind of follow while you are listening to music. It helps us get a little bit more out of the music that we are listening to. So we wanted to focus on things like the melody. This is the part that we hear the most in music. And we're just simply thinking, is it a high melody? Is the melody medium range or in the low ranges? Also harmony. Harmony sets the mood for the music. And we listen for bright, happy sounds, which are major sounds, and dark and sad sounds, which are minor sounds. We want to look at or think about the rhythm and the tempo. Can you clap the beat? Is it fast, medium, or slow? And then we will just think about what instruments are we actually listening to when we listen to the music. Are they string instruments, brass instruments, drums, woodwinds, voices, guitars, things like that. All right, so now we will get on to Charles Lummis and the preservation of culture here in Los Angeles. So Charles Fletcher Lummis played an important role in the documenting and collecting of photographs, music, art, artifacts, and culture of the native Pueblo Indians and Mexican people of the Southwest. He was a charismatic journalist, adventurer, and he was very physical and full of energy. He was well known for his writing and photography. He had a very colorful personality, full of storytelling, and with a deep thirst for learning and preserving the past. He was known as a hard worker who wanted to build his home and life experiences with his own two hands. Lummis was praised as one of Los Angeles' first multiculturalists. Charles Lummis was the key player in creating the city's first museum, the Southwest Museum of the American Indian, in 1907. So just a little bit about his story. Charles Lummis, he was born in Lynn, Massachusetts on March 1st, 1859. His father was a principal at an elementary school and later a professor at the university. And his mother died when he was only 2, and he was brought up by his extended family. And at a young age, it's very strange, but at a young age, he goes to his father and he tells him that he wants him to teach him because the way they're teaching him in school, he just cannot learn that way. So his father ends up homeschooling him, and eventually Lummis makes his way to Harvard, where he participated in athletics, and really he was really good at the social aspect of being in college. However, trigonometry eventually does him in, and he ends up failing out of Harvard. He had this dream of being able to explore and backpack throughout Europe, but of course, he did not have the money to do so. So after that, he had moved to Ohio, working on farm and doing laborious work, which really didn't suit him too much, and he ended up finding a job with a local newspaper in Chillicothe. He had learned of the LA Times and started following their stories. And he ends up in correspondence with the editor of the Los Angeles Times, Harrison Otis. And Lummis ends up asking Otis for a job with the LA Times, and most likely to fund his trip to Los Angeles. He ends up proposing to tramp or walk across the United States from Ohio to Los Angeles. There's some more pictures of him. So like so many other people during this time, the West was calling out to him, and he was seeking to have an adventure to solidify his rite of passage in life. Many of his friends asked why was he going to do a tramp, and one of his answers was that he was ashamed to know so little about his own country. By having to walk his way across the country, he ends up having to experience the different lands, people, and oftentimes immersing himself in new cultures and lifestyles. While walking, he was writing a column for the LA Times, which was being sent out across the nation to other newspapers, and he developed quite a following for his column. He advertised himself as newsworthy, and like any writer would do, he would engage his audience with adventure, oftentimes elaborating his stories, such as the time he had to kill a rabid beast of a dog with one quick uppercut with his knife. So he wrote about the indigenous people along his way. In his writing, you can see his first impressions that are of a typical white man during this time. The people that he would meet, the indigenous Indians of the Southwest, he first starts writing about how lazy of a people they are. They're dark, dirty, and dingy. However, as his journey progresses and he meets more and more people, he begins to see them in a different light. He is surprised and in awe of how good these people are. He writes, "They don't fit the norm, but are very nice, gracious, and generous." The Mexican people and Indians of the Southwest start to grow on him. He says, "They were not book smart, but smart in all social aspects of life. They have clean, well-built homes, living off the land, and are industrious in nature." He developed lifelong relationships with some of these people, and although not totally relieved of his superiority as being a white man, was ashamed that he had ever had bad thoughts of these people. One of these friendships was with the Chavezes, a very prominent family in New Mexico. They opened their doors to him, and it was a very deep friendship. Let me go back here. This is Lummis in his home. His home in LA, which he called OLLI-CSUF, was a very popular place to be back in the days when he finally gets there. So on February 1st, 1885, he arrived in Los Angeles. He called it the longest and happiest tramp ever known. Some have questioned if he even walked the whole thing. Through his correspondences, he seems to arrive places much too quickly at times. He entered LA during transition between the Mexican government and the American government. He wrote about the change for the LA Times, arrived right at the boom of the real estate and the railroad coming into town. There was a land rush and the marketing of LA as a lush, vibrant, up-and-coming city with perfect weather and roses all around. He was a booster of Los Angeles and its rich culture. Los Angeles was being racially changed over. Land and lifestyles were being stolen by the Americanization of the Southwest. In the 1850s, Mexican population was about 70%, and by 1880s, that had flipped to 70% being of white. At this time in Los Angeles, there is a start in romanticizing what came before, and Lummis is right on board with this idea. This romanticization and mythology of old Spanish California is referred to as the Spanish fantasy past. Lummis likes to find meaning in culture to promote others to come and experience it. Sometimes he seems racist because he promotes the American way and the Anglo-Saxon as being ideally superior, but he can see the destruction of the culture and the native people that are being erased. Lummis loved the Pueblo communities. He was attuned with their agriculture and artistic lives. He had taken so many photographs. This is one photograph here of a Pueblo dance in 1888. And wrote about his pictures as the last view of the world at this time. He knew it was all going to be gone soon and erased if he didn't try to preserve it. He started to write song lyrics of the people in journals and notebooks. And he would actually sit down and learn these songs with the people, although he was not a musician, so he could not transcribe the actual music or the melodies, but he had written vast amounts of lyrics for songs. Here are some more pictures that he took of the Pueblo Indian. There's some children there, and of some of their pottery. And we have even more pictures of some of the Pueblo Indians here and their homes, their adobe homes, the way they looked. So now he was a huge preserver of culture that came before in all aspects, the art, everything, the language, but since we're talking about the early music of LA, one of the main things that he did that preserved so much of the music was that he actually recorded wax cylinders of some of the songs of the Mexican people and indigenous Indians. The Southwest Society, which Lummis founded, started a project to start recording Mexican, Native Indian, and Mexican American music for preservation. With the use of a newly purchased Edison phonograph, Lummis recorded a combined total of over 500 cylinders of music. Although some have been damaged and lost to time, there are well over 400 cylinders left. The people who were on these recordings were usually friends and acquaintances of Lummis. They came from various backgrounds. They were all non-professional musicians, mostly singers and guitarists. Lummis believed he was preserving this music from being lost to time. Musicologist Dr. John Cagle, who teaches here at Cal State Fullerton School of Music, is one of the leading experts on the Lummis wax cylinder recordings, and he is currently transcribing the words and music of the whole collection for the Autry Museum of the Southwest. He is also my academic advisor and mentor, and he is my inspiration actually for putting on this lecture series on the early music of Los Angeles. Here we can see a couple of the wax cylinders in their cases there. So here, let's see. So the main contributor of Spanish language songs to Lummis's recordings was Manuela Garcia, who was from a family of musicians. She recorded a total of 120 songs for Lummis, though her repertoire was reported to be over 200, maybe even 300 songs. Her family lived in Los Angeles for a number of years in the 1890s. And in the 1890s, they hosted Miguel S. Arevalo, a professor from Guadalajara, Mexico. He was also a well-known guitarist, voice teacher, and composer in the Los Angeles area. Arevalo played a big role in Manuela's musical talents, along with her brother Ignacio, who played the guitar, and her sisters Elisa and Mercedes recorded songs for Lummis, as well as being guests at his home for social dinners and events in which they would sing and party. Manuela also studied art music as a mezzo-soprano. She studied vocal music 2 semesters at the State Normal School, which is now UCLA. Emily Valentine, a co-founder of the LA Conservatory of Music and Arts, was one of her teachers. She never earned a degree, but was listed as a local music teacher in the area for several years. She had also given Lummis a musical diary containing a collection of 140 Mexican folk songs. So that is Manuela Garcia right there. So we're going to listen to a song by Manuela, or from the recordings that she sung for Lummis, called La Cara Negra, the Black Face. And this is the simple listening guide for things the melody, her voice is a mid-range female voice. The harmony is minor and sad sounding. It has a medium, slow rhythm or tempo. And the instruments are just guitar and voice. I found some sheet music here for the song, and we have a translation here on the side, which I would like to read here. So the translation: though my face is black and my speech unrefined, though I say nothing to you, I adore you with my soul. I am as black as jet, you are as white as light. For this I despair, for this I cry if you see me. As soon as day breaks, I see your face before me. My feelings confuse me, and they say it is because of you. I'm burning, I'm scorching, I'm freezing to death. I can neither eat nor sleep for madness. Sweetheart, sweetness of my life, tell me you love me, give me your love. So here we will listen. right, so that was La Cara Negra by Manuela Garcia. Once again, she was just played a huge role in the Lummis recordings, recording so many songs for him, and her repertoire was just immense. So we'll move on here. All right, next we're going to talk about Adelaida Cordero Camp. She was an elderly lady and a seamstress who recorded the second most recordings for Lummis, over 60 songs. Her family heritage actually dated back all the way to the early 1780s in California. The songs that she recorded give us the earliest picture of music dating back to as far back as 1821. She learned the music from Jose de la Rosa, who had stayed with her family for a number of years. He was so impressed by Camp's talent that he left her his notebook of songs, which he didn't share with anybody after he had died. She later transcribed her own songs down into a notebook, which she had given to Lummis, and she had also sold De La Rosa's notebook to him for $10. Here's a picture of her at Lummis's home, OLLI-CSUF. So we are going to listen to a song that she recorded, Napoleon Narciso para Rey. Napoleon was born a king. And so here's the listening guide to kind of think about while we're listening. The melody is a medium female voice. Again, the harmony this time is major and happy sounding. The rhythm is a medium tempo, and this is just solo voice. And I believe the genre on this is actually a corrido. I couldn't make this any bigger, but this is just a little quick picture of some of the work that Dr. Cagle is doing, transcribing the music down. And I didn't get a translation of the whole thing, but this is the chorus: "Run away, runaway traitors, leave our nation. Why Jalisco's Libre proclaims Constitution." And we will listen to Adelaida singing it here. All right, that was Adelaida Camp. And we will move on to one more here who recorded for, Lummis recorded many people singing. One of them was Francisco Amate. He was another singer and musician who was associated with Lummis. He was actually a Spaniard from Spain. He lived at Lummis's house called Alisal in the Arroyo Seco area. And it was here that he met and married his wife. His wife would eventually become the housekeeper for Lummis. While expecting the birth of his daughter, unfortunately Francisco died, and Lummis eventually became his daughter's guardian. His recordings are thought to be the earliest recordings of traditional Spanish flamenco music from Spain. This one I could not find any sheet music for or have a translation. It's called Canarios, which is a typical Spanish form of a song. While we listen to the song, we want to, again, listen to the melody. This time we have a medium male voice. The harmony is major and happy sounding. The rhythm, medium fast. And instruments are guitar and voice.
This is WCA 28, Canarios. This is performed by Francisco Amate, and this was done the October 30th, 1904, and this was done for the Whittier Women's Club. This is a re-recording and will be the primary source material.
All right, there we have Francisco Amate singing for Lames. Okay, today's presentation didn't end up so long, but I do want to finish off here with a modern rendition or interpretation of Manuela Garcia's music. This song, from what I was researching, was not actually recorded for Lames. This is a song from one of her notebooks that she had left to Lames with the many songs that she had written. And this is an interpretation of those lyrics into song, sung by a wonderful all-female mariachi group called Las Colibris, or Libri. This is from a live performance, I believe, at the Autry Museum. They had did a big Charles Lummis wax recording kind of show. So I just want to share this with you guys.
El canto de mi amor, porque eres un ángel bajado del cielo que le da consuelo a mi pobre corazón. El sauce y la palma se mecen con calma, sus hojas se tiñen de nácar azul. Hermoso es el ruido del sauce y la palma, alma de mi alma, qué hermosa eres tú.
Yes, that was wonderful. And to think that those lyrics are Manuela Garcia's that she wrote down, although we do not know how she actually intended that song to sound. This is a modern interpretation and just kind of showing the power of Garcia's influence. I mean, the lyrics are totally Mexican sounding, and it's a wonderful song. The group Las Colibri, do a Google search. They perform all around Los Angeles, sometimes just at like events in the park and stuff like that. They are a great group to be listening to. So that's all I have for you today on Charles Lummis and the recordings. I wanted to tell, up to this point, we had kind of been focusing on the early music of Los Angeles in the Spanish-Mexican heritage sense. We had talked about the mission music and then the Spanish theater music. And today we were listening to the Lummis recordings, which he was preserving this indigenous Mexican and Pueblo Indian music. But Los Angeles was not all at this time, Spanish and Mexican music going on. So next class, which is on Tuesday, October 19th, we will look at the traditional European music coming into Los Angeles. We will focus on orchestral music and venues where the orchestras were playing, and also some opera music and the venues in which where operas were being held here in Los Angeles. I thank everybody for joining me and for joining me out on the stream. A little short of a lecture, but I am sure you guys got a lot out of it. Thank you.